Hello lazy people, 0x here, and today I want to show you this Netherwart farm that I designed. So maybe you already have seen this farm because we built it up on the Prototech SMP server, but I never really made a video about it, so I want to do that now. So this farm is really slow. You can expect only about 10,000 to 11,000 items per hour coming out of this farm. So the idea behind this farm is that you never have to wait for anything to grow up because you have a gigantic field of Netherwart and you can continuously harvest and replant the Netherwart. And once you get back to where you were, the Netherwart had enough time to grow up. So on the next cycle you can immediately harvest the Netherwart and continue replanting. So while I was attempting to make this video, what I realized was that my old design actually lost a little bit too many items. So I stopped and I made a few changes to the design, and what I did is I increased the width of this flying machine, so it's now 3 blocks wide, and now it can pick up more items that fall a little bit off to the side. So before it wouldn't be able to pick up. So what this also meant was that I had to put an observer into this position here. That was a little bit unfortunate because now if the flying machine is moving into that direction, the player wouldn't get enough items to pick up for replanting because they were just building up in front of the observer block. Before there was just a trapdoor like those two, and the items most of the items would actually get stuck here in this position where the player was between those two blocks. So that is no longer the case, and I also think that was maybe one of the mechanisms why that explains why the items were despawning. Yeah, so even though I put a lot of hoppers down below the soul sand here, I think a few stacks still managed to despawn, and that was hurting the weights of the farm a lot. Because when I did this change, the rates increased a lot. So, but there is now one unfortunate thing, and that is that the player doesn't get enough items back to plant them. And so what I did is I added water streams up here, one here and one over there. And this part of the flying machine opens trapdoors inside or below the water stream. So items can just, so the items can just fall down into those holes. And once the flying machine moves forward again, those items fall down onto the ground, and the player picks them up and can now replant. So what this also means is that I don't need any items getting stuck in here anymore. So what I did is I changed this trapdoor that was here to an upside down slab. So this way no more items will get stuck over here. Once the flying machine returns moving into that direction, all the items get left behind. And when the flying machine comes back the next time, the items get thrown into the water stream that is over there. So yeah, by doing this redesign, I also lost one row of Netherwart over here. So before there were just 2 empty rows, now there's 3. But even though I lost one row of Netherwart, the rates increased significantly just because less items are despawning inside of the farm now. If the farm is in its initial configuration like this, all you need to do to start the farm is to press this button here. If you want the farm to continuously run, you have to put in this 1 redstone dust here. Otherwise, if you want it to stop after 1 round, just remove that redstone dust. And then you can just sit inside the minecart and start harvesting and replanting. So now I started the farm so you can actually see it in action. So you can see here that the harvester destroys the crops in front of it, and the player plants new crops to the side of the flying machine. So, and all the items that don't get picked up by the player get pushed by the flying machine all the way to the end where there's a water stream, and they get collected. And then the flying machine moves over by 1 block and returns. Now you can also see that the flying machine left some items here, and also there are items that came down from the water stream that the player didn't pick up because the player already had enough items. But once the flying machine returns for the next time, those items will get pushed down into the water stream again. So now items will get lost here. Pretty much the same happens on the other side. So you can see all these items build up in front of the observer now, and now they fall down into the water stream. And those items that get picked up by the observer, or that build up in front of the observer, are not reachable for the player. So that's why I had to introduce those water streams. So now let's see how the return stations work. So the return stations, because the flying machine gets moved forward both on this side and on the other side, so the return station has to move 2 blocks while moving the flying machine 1 block. The way that works is that this piston is going to push on this block, and now this block will pull the sticky piston that is on the flying machine and will push over the front part of the flying machine. And then immediately after that, or after some delay, the back part is getting pushed over by those slime blocks over here. And on the way out, you could see that that this block gets pushed another time. So the return station actually moves twice, and the flying machine only moves once. So the return station on the other side works in a similar way. So first it's going to push over this block that releases the items from the water stream, and then also it pushes over this part, so this whole extension, and then it pulls on this extension, which also moves forward this extension. And once that happened, which you can see happening right now, once that happens, this part here works like a makeshift, like a temporary caterpillar engine, which pushes the one part of the flying machine forward. And then there's this piston which pushes, or which pulls the other part of the flying machine forward. And on the way out, the extension pulls on this extension again. So that's how this return station gets moved forward by 2 blocks, while the flying machine, so the harvester itself, is only get moved forward by 1 block. Now you can see that the flying machine is reaching the end of the field, and this is actually the second to last time this flying machine returns into this station. So what happens then is that the flying machine will activate this redstone line, which goes all the way over there, which will stand over a flying machine that will pull those 2 extensions back by 1 block, which practically disables the return mechanism on this side. And on the other side, the flying machine will push over this extension here by 1 more block, which enables this return mechanism here. So what this will do is it will extend all the segments of the return station, and then there's just a flying machine that pushes us all the way back over there. So what happens on this side then is a little bit more complicated. So you can see this flying machine has arrived now, and it has pulled those extensions a bit. But this extension here will get moved over again by one block, which triggers this return mechanism here. So there are two pistons in the ceiling. They will pull on those two pistons from the flying machine just to put them in a more convenient place for transport. And then the whole thing gets triggered, and part of it gets pushed by this flying machine back here, and the other part gets pulled by this flying machine in front of here. So if you want to stop the machine, all you need to do is to remove this redstone dust here, and it will stop exactly in the starting position. On this side there are also pistons that will put the pistons that were relocated back in place. And also the player gets returned over here on those rails and end up on top of the trapdoor again. And once the flying machine gets started again, the player will fall down again and will get transported by the harvester. If you stop the flying machines, of course, make sure to also deactivate the droppers here, otherwise this will just waste a lot of Netherwart. However, you don't have to actually wait for anything to return into the initial position. If you want to stop this farm, all you need to do is you just have to place a block in the path of the flying machine. And it will just stop, and then you can turn off those hoppers again, or those droppers again, and the farm is stopped. If you want to restart it, it's also very simple. All you have to do is get a button or a lever and place it below this piston, or even a torch, whatever, and the flying machine will continue flying. So yeah, if you stop it going into the other direction, you actually have to break part of the roof to make it fly again. So I'm in a new version now. I'm in 1.16.1 instead of 1.12, and a few things have changed since then. So what you can do now, you can now plant one Netherwart plant next by clicking on another Netherwart plant. You couldn't do that before. So once I get into the harvester, I can show you how to do the replanting. So you have to actually plant the plant in this block. And in 1.12 it would be fine to just aim at that block, but now you can see that it plants the Netherwart plants in the wrong position. So where you want to aim instead is all the way over there. And this now also has the benefit that if you missed planting a row and a Netherwart plant in the previous row, that it would be able to replant that too. So there you have it. Not a lot has changed in the current version, but I'm gonna give you both the 1.12 version and the 1.16 version as a build download, so you can check those out for yourself. And other than that, well, I have some other farms that I have built up on SMP, but never really shown on video, so maybe in the future I'll make a few similar videos for different farms that I had built. Until then, see you and goodbye.